in a world where no one knows what the world is. What up, fam? So, a little bit late, but Kai is out of town for a couple days. So, I'm watching her leave by myself. I got her down. She could wake up. If she wakes up, I'm going to have to step away, play a video or something. But she's asleep right now. So, pretty hectic day. I didn't have time to put a full presentation together. I was gonna cover the ether, didn't happen. I'm kind of like rethinking things in the sense that I'm like just talking about flat earth all the time. And yeah, like flat earth, true earth, it's important. It's very eye-opening truth. It's arguably the biggest lie ever, but really the biggest lie ever is you're in this materialistic world and that integrated into the globe deception and stuff. And so many people are telling me that they missed the streams where I would just cover a bunch of random topics of gravy. And I don't really see how it's going to fit into the current schedule. So I can cover gravy on Sunday mornings, but that's much more of like a chill with the fam, open up P.O. box letters vibe. I haven't decided what I'm going to do. I'm definitely not going to be streaming on Tuesday. I'm already streaming so much that it's like overwhelming. So, if I were to do what I used to do, back in the day I even did presentations, but like if I just went live and just started talking, I could do that 5 days a week. That's easy. But the whole presentation thing, it's intense. Anyway, long story short, this show may slowly evolve into we're not just talking about the heliocentric model and relativity and alleged gravity and the grappler that is Einstein. Just a whole bunch of stuff. I was going to cover the ether, didn't have time, but I'll figure out how to do it. Of course, we'll still have Skull and Glovers on the Wednesdays. That'll be about flat earth. We'll have WitsitGetsIt, different guests, so you'll get a bunch of gravy from different guests on that day. And Friday will be a bunch of random subjects, but those are like real like nerdy, higher level, intellectual, academic type conversations. But we'll figure it out. Cool. I'll say I love the new series In the Field. Yeah, it's everyone's favorite. I knew it would be too. All right, cool. So let's just get into it. We're going to cover something I have covered on this channel before, but it's pretty hilarious, and it's kind of where everything took a turn for the worse in cosmology. So hopefully everything sounds good. Let me know if you guys have an echo. I'll try to fix it. Cool. Austin needs to start giving more praise to God instead of creation. Oh, thank you, man. That's what's up. I talk about the creator all the time, so I don't know what to tell you, man. If you could actually timestamp one time I've given praise to the creation, I'll give you $100. People, man. And actually that's kind of relevant to like people are like, you just talk about flat earth all the time. It's like, yeah, I prayed about it and I fasted about it, and that's what I felt like I was supposed to do because it wakes people up to the creator. And I have, I don't know, many hundreds of emails and letters confirming that. So I'll take it up with the creator if I'm talking about him or leading enough people to him, not some random person in the YouTube chat that doesn't do anything. So, okay. I'm talking about an echo on the video, by the way. When I play the video, just let me know. I'm just going to ban this guy. How about that? So you can go cry somewhere else. Let me know if the video echoes. That's what I'm talking about. I know I'm not echoing, but when I play the video, I'm hoping it doesn't echo. Cool. All right. I hate that the stream started that way. That's why they should just get bans. You don't even believe Jesus is God, not Trinity God, do you? No, I actually know how to read the scriptures and understand what it says. And it specifically says that Jesus is not God and that the Father is God and that he does nothing except for what the Father allows him to do. And he gave him all of his authority and he was the first thing created. So maybe you, and I gotta say this, I gotta address it. I knew you would be a person that believes that Jesus is God and in the Trinity because you're a fake Christian that talks down to other people, pretends that they're more righteous than they truly are, doesn't actually witness to people and wake them up, probably thinks the law is thrown away and you can do whatever you want to and you're a special boy and just say, Jesus, come into my heart. I can eat bacon and watch porn and drink a ton of alcohol and do whatever I want to do because my modern Christian church who told everyone if they don't take the jab, they can't come here, or if they don't wear a mask, they're not allowed in, or shut down their doors and told everyone that Jesus is God and don't even talk about the Father, never go to the original Hebrew, never actually read the Torah unless they want to go to the Old Testament to get tithing, going to come around and tell me the same religious doctrine I was raised up in at a literal Christian private school called Trinity Christian Academy. It's really annoying, but you know what I'll do is I'll stick to having a personal relationship with the Creator and praying and getting answers from the Creator, and you can just keep being a special boy on the internet. Sorry about the vibe, but I just don't like people like that, man. I don't like you because it's always something like if you look at my comments, people just spam my comments with all this stuff. Like they're so holier than thou. I bet if I saw your browser history, it would be disgusting. That's what I bet. I bet if I saw your browser history, it would just be repulsive. You know? It's just like, man, you can tell what quote unquote Christians believe in the Trinity and believe Jesus is God. They walk around talking down to everyone. Yep. Walk around talking down to everybody about how they're so much better and they're not doing what the Bible says as good as they are and they have the perfect doctrine, and until see people go around and preach their doctrine. Well, I talk to thousands of people and wake them up and like literally sacrifice, almost $150,000 a year job to do this and basically make nothing, behind on all my bills, can't even pay my bills, just to try to wake people up. And thousands of people, hear my stance that brings them closer to the Creator. I just think it's funny. All right. Sorry about all that. But not just because of that person, just in general, I just wanted to address that. Like, if you don't like the channel, you don't have to be here, The number one things that push people away from the Creator are people that are like super judgmental and hateful and pretend they have it all figured out. And then they just cram the Catholic doctrine down their throat about this polytheistic interpretation of the scriptures that there's 3 different gods, but they're all the same. You just can't understand it. But if you don't understand it, you're going to go to hell. So I'm going to pass on that. All right. Back to the actual subject. We're going to watch this video. Let me know if the video echoes, because when I share it through my computer, sometimes it'll echo. And if you guys will just let me know, then we'll go from there. I don't know if I have it set up here. Okay. Boom. All right, we'll do the full screen and then I can come over as well. So this guy covers it decently well. Like I said, we have covered a lot of this on the channel before, but very important. Sorry about the delay. This is why you got to get on some of the big conspiracy podcasts, brother. You're brilliant. It would blow you up so fast to make a real living spreading truth. Yeah. Thank you, man. I'll think about it. This dude is such a gamma. I think we should leave him in here because he's like a perfect example of how not to be. Yeah. I'm about to start doing TikTok and Rumble, so I'm pretty positive that the channel will blow up. And that's what I'm saying. I kind of want to talk about other stuff. There's so much gravy. All right, I'm getting sidetracked. I'm like actually really tired. I've been up all day just running around, so. Let's watch it. Let me know if it Oh. Let me know if it echoes, por favor.
Your host, Joe Sorge. In the last episode, we learned about time dilation and why all observers believe that the speed of light is constant. And while the explanation for time dilation is a good one for clock elements that move side to side with respect to the direction of motion, something we will call transverse motion, things get more complicated if clock elements move forward and backward, something we will call longitudinal motion. So let's once again talk about Einstein's.
I sent you. Oh, please find my letter. All right, Justin, that's you that made the wood. Austin, I sent you a package that you showed on biscuits and gravy. Please find my letter. Yeah, I'm going to try to find it for sure. I got you, bro. If that's you, that wood is awesome. No echo, awesome. You guys are mean. Yeah, you mean the guy that's anonymous on the internet claiming to represent Christ and bashing a younger girl's song she put her heart and soul into while he does nothing, and then talking about how everyone else is not a good Christian because he doesn't believe in the outdated Catholic doctrine that bastardized the scriptures and took his name out 6,800 times and said that Jesus is God and not to worry about the Father, and throw out the law when Yeshua himself said that the law will never be done away with. And any one of you people like this guy in the chat that teaches me to turn away from the law will be considered the least among all of you. Okay. All right, so check it out. He's going to kind of break some of this stuff down and then we'll go through it. And this is the lunacy of the current model. And this is actually what they had to do to save the model. So let's go.
Thought experiment with people on a train and people in a station. Let's say we make a light clock that bounces light between two mirrors, but this time one is attached to the interior wall at the back of the train car and the other.
Oh, sorry. You said there's a donation in there? Then I think I may know where it is. It's got like cash in it. Then I do have it somewhere because it's got the cash in it. I put it somewhere. All right, cool. I'll find it and I'll read it on the next biscuits and gravy. All right, let's get into it.
The other is attached to the interior wall at the front of the train car. Let's say that the distance from the back to the front is L prime meters. Regardless of whether the train is stationary or moving, if observers on the train measure this distance, it will always appear to them to be L prime meters long. We will call this the proper length of the train. People in the station will see things differently. As the light travels from the back of the train to the front of the train moves forward. People in the station will see the forward-moving light chasing the mirror attached to the forward-moving front of the train car. Now, since Einstein believed that light travels at a constant speed regardless of the speed of its source, the relative speed of light moving toward the front of the train is c stationary frame meters per second minus the speed of the train, which is v stationary frame meters per second. Now, take a moment to think about this. Even though light bounces off of a mirror on the moving train, it travels at the
light doesn't bounce and it doesn't travel
same speed with respect to the ground or the station as if it had bounced off of a stationary mirror. Another example might be the light coming from the front headlight of a train. According to Einstein, light will travel at the same speed, regardless of whether the train is moving or not. This is similar to what we learned about sound in episode 2. Its speed was determined by the air.
Bruh, they're hating.
You can think of the Lorentz factor as a multiplier that converts the medium found in the vacuum of space through which light. Ether for light would be like air for sound. It could be some type of invisible medium found in the vacuum of space through which light travels at a constant speed, regardless of the speed of the source of the light. So they set out to try to detect the ether. The most famous experiment of this time was conducted by two scientists, Michelson and Morley. They reasoned that light should require more time to move in the direction of the Earth's motion as compared to moving in a direction perpendicular or transverse to the direction of Earth's motion. To understand what they expected, we need to do some math. Now, using the...
Yeah, and this is pretty important. I've covered on here before, but maybe you're new. So they shoot two light beams perpendicular to each other, and one of them is going against the assumed orbit of the Earth, like the motion of the Earth. So say the Earth's moving this way, one of the light beams is moving this way with it, the other one is shot the other way, perpendicular to it. Or someone always keeps asking, like, if you don't believe that light travels, then how do you invoke Michelson-Morley? Well, it has a rate of induction. The perceived illumination is relative to the background, and we call that speed. So that rate of induction should be relative to the motion the Earth was allegedly going through. It doesn't change anything. What we call the speed of light in the assumed travel is the rate of induction, the rate of perceived illumination, how quickly we see it. Therefore, we can use the construct of speed or travel for intents and purposes. It doesn't really matter. It's just an improper definition or explanation of what's actually going on as it pertains to there being a background medium and then like the ether or light. Same thing, tomato. In fact, everything is light, but that's a different stream. Anyway, as that illuminates, right, that rate of induction is going to be relative to any other additional or external forces or motion. So if the Earth is orbiting, you should be able to see a difference with the light. We know this because of even Michelson-Morley, for example. So moving on.
Reasoning from the prior episode, the time required for light to travel transverse to the direction of motion is the Lorentz gamma factor times the transverse distance, which we called h prime in the last episode, divided by light speed, c. The Lorentz gamma factor is the ratio of the diagonal path that light travels, as seen by people in the stationary perspective, divided by h prime. You can think of the Lorentz factor as a multiplier that converts the transverse distance h prime into the diagonal distance. And when we divide the diagonal distance by light speed, we get the stationary frame time it takes light to travel the diagonal distance. Now, for light traveling the longitudinal distance from the rear to the front of the train car, the time required from the perspective of observers in the stationary frame is the length of the train car, L prime, divided by the speed of light relative to the speed of the train, which is c minus v. As we discussed in episode 2, it's like a car chase. The front car is trying to escape, but the trailing car is moving faster. The trailing car closes the gap between them at a rate equal to their relative speed, which is the speed of the faster trailing car minus the speed of the slower front car. The time required for the trailing car to catch the front car is the distance between them, L prime, divided by the relative speed at which the trailing car closes the gap. Michelson and Morley reasoned that the time required for
here's the important part.
Light to travel in the direction of Earth's motion would be the distance between the mirrors in their experimental apparatus, L prime, divided by the speed of light minus the speed of the Earth moving through the ether. And similarly, they reasoned that once the light bounced back from the downstream mirror, it would return in less time, which would be equal to the distance between the mirrors, L prime, divided by light speed plus the speed of the Earth through the ether. They added the speed of the Earth because on the return trip, the mirror at the origin is now traveling toward the returning light. So the relative speed at which light returns to the origin, as seen from the stationary frame, is faster than light speed. This doesn't mean that light was traveling faster than c. It means that the returning light traveled at speed c through space, but the Earth, or train, approached the returning light at speed v. And so they were on a collision course at a combined speed of c plus v. The total time required for light to travel from the origin to the downstream mirror and then return back to the origin is simply the sum of both times. And if we rearrange this formula using basic algebra, we learn that the total time is 2 times the distance between the mirrors times light speed divided by light speed squared minus the speed of the Earth squared. If we divide the numerator and denominator by c squared, we get 2 times the length of travel times the Lorentz gamma factor squared divided by c. Now, if we compare this to the total time for transverse light to make a round trip between mirrors that are aimed perpendicular.
This video is really lame. All right.
Mirrors that reflected the light to.
So you're going to shoot the light, and then he's going to explain it here, and it's got graphics. That's what I'm playing.
In the Michelson-Morley experiment, they created 2 light paths of equal length, aimed at right angles to each other, both with downstream mirrors that reflected the light to a receiver. They placed the light paths on a turntable so that they can aim the paths in any direction with respect to the movement of the Earth. They reasoned that if they could aim one of the light paths in the direction of Earth's motion, then the other light path would be at right angles to the direction of Earth's motion, and they should see a difference in the time required for light to travel along the 2 paths. It all made a lot of sense, and they were hoping to compute the speed of the Earth through space with the results of their experiment. Well, they were shocked by the answer. It took exactly the same amount of time for light to travel along both paths, regardless of the direction in which they oriented the turntable. They tried the experiment in the spring, the fall, the summer, the winter, during the day, at night. No matter when they performed the experiment, they never saw a difference in the time required for light to travel along the 2 paths. And yes, their apparatus was sensitive enough to detect a difference if one really existed. And yes, the Earth really does move through space, even though some eccentrics have claimed that the Michelson-Morley result proves that the Earth is flat and the Sun really does orbit the Earth.
No one has ever claimed that. When has anyone claimed that? Ever? You notice how every time they talk about flat Earth, they have to straw man it? Similar to the person being mentioned in the chat. Which is crazy synchronicity, because I was about to redo my ether stream, which just dunks all over the photon and quantum mechanics and the claim of the speed of light. But I'll do that next week probably. I just didn't have time to put it together. But No one said that. What it shows is that the Earth is not moving. That's what it shows.
The Earth really does move through space, even though some eccentrics have claimed that the Michelson-Morley result proves that the Earth is flat and the sun really does orbit the Earth. Michelson and Morley were stymied by the result.
Why would you say that lie?
It suggested either that there was no ether, or somehow the ether was being dragged along with the Earth as it moved through space, an idea that was eventually ruled out with further experiments. Various other explanations were offered, one of which will be the subject of the next episode, length contraction. I don't think it's the correct answer, but it's the answer that has been...
Okay, so really that's the video we need to watch is this one.
Then please forge ahead. In the last episode, we learned that Michelson and Morley were expecting the time required for light to travel in the direction of...
I'm not sure why the notification didn't pop up, but Retro Reister Gaming, thank you for the $10 super chat. God bless you and your family. You're doing awesome. Thanks. Thank you, brother. Much love. I'll figure out the alerts in a sec.
Motion to take longer than the time required for light to travel at right angles or transverse to the direction of motion. But that's not what they observed. Instead, they learned that the time required for light to travel longitudinally was exactly equal to the time required for light to travel transversely. This result puzzled scientists in the 19th century because the basic math demanded that travel times be different. The longitudinal distance might appear to be the same as the transverse distance when measured by observers in the moving frame of reference. But observers in the stationary frame of reference would see that the distances are not the same.
If you're still believing in this deluded idea that the Earth flies around the sun, you should really pay attention to this. Okay? You should really pay attention.
But observers in the stationary frame of reference would see that the distances are not the same. And this created a dilemma because it would not be possible for Michelson and Morley to witness the simultaneous return of longitudinal and transverse light beams in their laboratory unless stationary frame observers, let's say floating out in space, would also witness the same simultaneous return. Keep in mind that events that occur at the same location along the axis of motion are seen as simultaneous in both the moving and stationary frames. In the late 1800s...
Okay, so what he's actually saying isn't complicated if you didn't follow it. So... as they shoot the light, wasn't a laser, and then it reconnects in the middle here, and it goes back to the receiver. If the Earth is actually orbiting the sun, the light that's going perpendicular to the motion of the Earth should have had to travel further to catch up to the Earth, thus should have had a longer path, thus should have taken longer. Certainly, if you say that light has a constant velocity, therefore, if it has a constant speed, speed equals distance over time. So for this light to travel further in the same amount of time, it would have to go faster. Okay, so this is what they should have seen. You see how it's labeled as seen by stationary observers and as seen by moving observers. Well, this is the excuse, right? But in reality, what should have happened, what was expected, just like Einstein himself said, and we'll pull his PDF up, the PDF of Relativity, Special and General Theory. He says, their experiment should have been decisive, and it was puzzling for physicists. Okay, so this should have happened. If the Earth is moving and one of the light beams is going perpendicular to the motion of the Earth, this should have had to travel further than the light beam that's moving with the Earth. What they actually saw was this on the left, but they should have saw what's on the right.
Stationary frame observers, let's say floating out in space, would also witness the same simultaneous return. Keep in mind that events that occur at the same location along the axis of motion are seen as simultaneous in both the moving and stationary frames. In the late 1800s, Henrik Lorentz proposed a solution to the Michelson-Morley result, which is that lengths contract in the direction of motion, but not perpendicular to the direction of motion. The concept is that moving objects...
Let me get these comments on the screen real fast. There you go. Is it going to read it? It's not reading it. Okay, Jazz Jacket, thank you for the $22 super chat. Thank you, Austin. Thank you for spreading truth. How can you argue against Einstein wearing Ray-Bans, though? Yeah, I know, right? What a cool shirt. This dude actually does go against Einstein, though. I'll give him that.
Objects actually get physically shorter along the axis of motion, including the moving observers themselves, but they don't notice the change. Moving observers will not.
Everyone pay attention to this part. When I first brought this up, I had all the anti-flat earthers going crazy, claiming that this isn't true. When I made this point, they said it isn't true, but they don't understand relativity, and we'll get into it in just a second. But
Of the Michelson-Morley result, which is that lengths contract in the direction of motion, but not perpendicular to the direction of motion. The concept is that moving objects actually get physically shorter along the axis of motion, including the moving observers themselves, but they don't notice the change. Moving observers will not detect the shrinking of proper lengths because their measuring devices also contract along the axis of motion. So the contracted length of a moving train car will appear to be the same length when measured with a contracted meter stick. The concept is similar to time dilation, where the clocks used by moving observers tick more slowly, but the moving observers are unaware of the slowing. The moving observers assume that their seconds prime are of the same duration as stationary seconds, even though stationary observers will notice that a second prime lasts gamma times longer than a second. Similarly, a contracted moving meter stick is allegedly gamma-fold shorter than a stationary meter stick, yet the contracted observers in the moving frame do.
what does this say? Just watch Level with me. What's the I've seen many UFOs myself. I've seen many quote unquote UFOs myself. What do you mean? I saw some when I was like 19. I saw 6 lights that were moving left and right, up and down, just levitating there with one of my ex-girlfriends. Floated around, moved back and forth, disappeared one by one, then made a triangle, then the top light slowly moved down to the middle, and then they all disappeared, and then the middle one disappeared last. I saw another one go over top of our backyard with another ex-girlfriend, and then a few minutes later, it came back across over top. It looks like a star, but just gliding through the sky. It looked like it would be moving crazy fast, pretty high. You can't just say it's a quote-unquote satellite or whatever because it came right back over our head. I've had numerous experiences. I've seen, I think 13 of them in one night when it was really clear, and I sat outside on my back on the driveway, and I counted like 27 shooting stars. It was super clear. Saw helicopters, saw planes, saw 13 things that looked like quote-unquote UFOs. Looked like a star gliding through the sky, scattered throughout the sky over the course of like an hour, all going north. So, yes, that's why I said that.
Not notice the contraction because their entire environment is contracted in the same dimension. According to Lorentz's model, when stationary observers measure the contracted length of the train with uncontracted meter sticks, they will record a smaller number of stick lengths than moving observers.
Whirlwind Music, thank you for the $10 super chat. Much love, greatly appreciated. Thanks for everything, brother. Thank you, Blake1991 for the $22 super chat. Much love. Yeah, it's supposed to be reading them, but it's not. I don't know.
Who unknowingly measure the contracted length of the train with contracted meter sticks. If the length of the train car shrinks from L prime to L prime divided by gamma, as measured with an uncontracted meter stick, then the distance that light must travel in the longitudinal dimension will require gamma-fold fewer seconds. In this case, the total time for light to travel forward and back is 2 times the contracted length of the train.
Does everyone get what he's saying here? UFO, ancient electrostatic levitation, Whirlwind Music, thank you for being a miswit for 7 months. Level 2. Check them out. Legend. Okay, basically, the idea that they had to come up with to save the heliocentric model with Michelson-Morley, like we covered, the light should have had to travel a greater distance.
Created a dilemma because it would not be possible for.
You see this right here? This is gonna be. Watch this. This is gonna be longer because it's taking a longer path. So this is actually going to be a longer path. You see this? Longer path. Okay. So this didn't happen. So they had to say, oh, well, the apparatus contracted. And you just couldn't tell. Okay. And so that's where this comes in.
To the direction of motion. The concept is that moving objects actually get physically shorter along the axis of motion.
The super chat was $10, but it contracted. Sorry. I'll allow it. Godzilla37, thank you for the super chat, brother. Much love.
Including the moving observers themselves, but they don't notice the change. Moving observers will not detect the shrinking of proper lengths because their measuring devices also contract along the axis of motion. So the contracted length of a moving train car will appear to be the same length when measured with a contracted meter stick. The concept is similar to time dilation, where the clocks used by moving observers tick more slowly, but the moving observers are unaware of the slowing. The moving observers assume that their seconds prime are of the same duration as stationary seconds, even though stationary observers will notice that a second prime lasts gamma times longer than a second. Similarly, a contracted moving meter stick is allegedly gamma-fold shorter than a stationary meter stick. Yet the contracted observers in the moving frame do not notice the contraction because their entire environment is contracted in the same dimension. According to Lorentz's model, when stationary observers measure the contracted length of the train with uncontracted meter sticks, they will record a smaller number of stick lengths than moving observers who unknowingly measure the contracted length of the train with contracted meter sticks. If the length of the train car shrinks from L prime to L prime divided by gamma, as measured with an uncontracted meter stick, then the distance that light must travel in the longitudinal dimension will require gamma-fold fewer seconds. In this case, the total time for light to travel forward and back is 2 times the contracted length of the train car, L sub c, times gamma squared divided by light speed, which is equal to 2 times the uncontracted length, L prime, times gamma, instead of gamma squared, divided by c, which is equal to 2 times the transverse distance, H prime, times gamma divided by c. In other words, the stationary observer will witness light traveling gamma-fold less distance because of length contraction, and thus will witness it taking gamma-fold less time. And therefore, total longitudinal travel time will be the same as transverse travel time. Frankly,
There you go. So this is the actual math, okay? So anyone telling you that it doesn't claim that it contracted for Michelson-Morley doesn't know what they're talking about. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to explain it. Okay. So they didn't get what they expected for Michelson-Morley, okay? And they being Lorentz, who believed in the ether, came up with an idea to save the ether and save the heliocentric model at the same time. He said that the ether caused the apparatus to contract just the right amount to compensate for the missing time difference that should have been there. Now, he knew it was kind of insane. He's like, I can't think of anything else. It's not like he had evidence for it or something. He just did the math, saw how much was missing, and then came up with an equation to explain that the apparatus contracted that amount. That's how he came up with the number. Now, this is like when I was talking to that former professor in physics, Bryant Myers, and I was telling him, that's how they came up with the number. He's like, you're so dumb. You don't understand math. You know, real professional guy there. It would be like the width, like 1/500th the width of a human hair would be way too small to ever account for it. I did the math. You're so dumb. And I'm like, you might want to calm down. That's where the math came from. The Lorentz contraction equation literally came from the amount needed to explain Michelson-Morley. That's how he came up with it. Okay. So it wasn't a measured effect, no evidence for it, nothing like that. They're like, this is what the heliocentric model would predict. This is what we actually got. What's the difference? Here's an equation to make up for that difference, just like they did with dark matter. Here's what gravity predicted. Oh, it's off by 99%. Here's an equation to fill in the 99% missing mass. Just call it dark matter. Just call it length contraction. Now, we could get into a bit of a more profound and higher level point, which is that these mathematicians and physicists nowadays, they actually conflate length and distance. Okay. Length is merely descriptive of a physical object, and distance is between two objects. So they're not the same thing. And this has actually drastic implications on stuff like where they claim the muon decay, time dilation, length contraction, and that would be a whole episode. But anyway, and I will bury muon decay at some point, and that's again a higher level point maybe, but people actually think that proves that time physically gets wider and changes, and length contracts. But anyway. So they claimed that the apparatus contracted just the right amount to make it look like the Earth was stationary. That's what Lorentz said. And he said the ether was causing it to contract, and he couldn't really explain how that would work. He's like, I have no idea. And I'm not even offering a physical mechanism other than the ether is like pressing on it, contracting it. Why it's doing it, I don't know. But here's the equation that will fix our problem. And Einstein took that and put it in relativity. And he says this in his own words, which I will just cover his PDF because people don't seem to understand it. But he integrated it into his work. And what's so funny is Einstein says in his own words, he says that what motivated me to come up with special relativity was Michelson-Morley. This was the first path which led me to special relativity, coming across the results of Michelson-Morley. He, of course, then says, I came across the fact that experiments like this has already been done. Experiments like what? That have been trying to detect the motion of the Earth. Like by your compatriot Michelson. And if we are to accept his results as a fact, which they've been replicated hundreds of times, everything occurs on the Earth as if the Earth is at rest. So he took length contraction and put it into his theory. I'm not sure why the chat's not updating. And boom. Okay, we'll go with that. So yeah, what's so funny is what people were trying to say is no, there's no length contraction on the Earth. But if you say that, what you're saying is that the Earth is at rest. Oh, well, it is relatively. The observer, the Earth's at rest relative to the observer. That's the same reference frame. So what relativity actually says is that nothing is at rest. Nothing. So any explanation you're proposing that proposes something being at rest doesn't work with relativity. It says that nothing is at rest. Nothing in the entire universe is at rest. And by the way, that's actually correct, but not in the way that he's saying it. Like, there are absolute frames, but this isn't really at rest because on the smallest scale inside of this, it's vibrating. So it's not actually at true rest. Nothing's truly stationary. There's always vibration. Now, seemingly, the Earth has foundations and there's vibrations within that. And that may be the only thing that's truly at rest, although there's motion inside of it. So anyway, you get it. Nothing is at rest in the entire universe according to relativity. Okay? So the Earth isn't at rest according to relativity. But in order to say that anything is moving according to relativity, it has to be in relation to something else. You can't just say the Earth is moving. You have to say the Earth is moving around the sun. Okay. Well, that's what they were testing for. They wanted to test the Earth's motion around the sun. So what Einstein said is that the apparatus contracted just a sufficient amount to compensate for the missing time difference. And just like Lorentz said, that was the correct solution to our difficulty, to our problem, explaining this problem that was perplexing to physicists, where the test should have been decisive. We should have had a fringe shift if the Earth is orbiting around the sun within an ether, but we didn't. And turns out that what Lorentz came up with, the contraction, was the right answer. That's what Einstein said. He says, we see that according to relativity, from the view also of relativity.
The Play Life donated $100 through Super Chat. So many complicated equations to try to explain away the simple and obvious.
Thank you so much, brother. That's a very generous donation. The Plain Life. Thank you, bro. That was very generous. And exactly. And that's actually the telltale sign, by the way. Divinity is simplicity. Truth is simple. And when you have overcomplicated math, that's like the big red flag that humans are arrogant, thinking they know more than they do, and making stuff up that isn't true. The truth is always logical. Like wave-particle duality, illogical. Can't be correct. It can't be correct. It is impossible that that's correct. But yeah, so whenever you have a philosophical devotion and reality consistently shows you the opposite of your philosophy, you will have to do something like hide it in complicated mathematics. But thank you again for that very generous donation. That was very kind of you, sir. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull up the PDF and we're going to show you what Einstein said in his own words. But I'm going ahead and what I always try to make sure people understand is you should be able to still man the other side of whatever position you hold in order to have a justified stance. Any justification of any justified claim of knowledge, if you will, requires full understanding of the possibilities. So if you are a geocentrist or heliocentrist, you should understand the other side's position sufficiently in order to say that. This is why so many people aren't flat earthers, because they literally don't understand the actual flat earth position. Literally. I mean, I'm talking people that have been obsessed with the conversation for 7-8 years. They don't understand the flat earth position. They think that the sun should never set. They think sunsets are impossible on a flat earth. They think the entire earth should be lit up by the sun if it was flat. They think there would be no horizon on a flat earth. They think that the horizon would always have to rise completely to eye level if the earth was flat. They think there's an edge that you should have to fall off of if the earth is flat. This is what people think 7 years in. So, of course, they're not flat earthers. They don't understand the position. In order to be a flat earther, justifiably, you need to understand the globe and the heliocentric model in order to be a geocentrist. And what I've discovered is people don't understand the heliocentric model. They don't truly understand it. So what you're going to hear, all that to say, I'm going to still man what you're going to hear. I'm going to still man what they try to say. Witsit's so stupid. He doesn't know what he's talking about. There is no length contraction for the observer on the earth. That's right. The person on the earth doesn't experience length contraction because he's on the earth. He's in the reference frame that's moving in relation to the earth or to the sun. So for him, that motion is non-existent as far as he can tell. Him relative to the earth is stationary, right? They're in the same reference frame in relation to the sun. Now, what that means is if the earth is truly orbiting the sun, the apparatus had to contract, as did all the space around it, as did the observer themselves on the earth. This is a fact. And when they try to hand wave dismiss and say, no, there's no contraction on the earth because they're within the reference frame, it's an inertial reference frame for them, it's a rest frame for them, there's no contraction on the earth, the apparatus didn't actually contract. It's very remedial and incorrect. There's nothing at rest in the entire universe according to relativity, and you can't claim that anything is in motion unless it's in relation to something else. In this specific scenario, it's in relation to the sun, okay? So if you say that, no, there was no length contraction on the earth, you're excluding the fact that the earth is allegedly moving around the sun. You have to just exclude it. Okay, but we're talking about, is it reality that the earth is spinning, orbiting the sun? In reality, is that what's happening? Just saying reference frames, compartmentalizing everything up into reference frames doesn't answer the question about what's happening in reality. And if you have to do that, it's because you can't defend your claim of reality. Okay, they claim the earth orbits the sun. They took that reference frame, that body of reference, the sun, calculated the earth orbiting around it, and then predicted a fringe shift. They did not see it. What that means is for that specific motion of orbit around the sun, there has to be a contraction on the earth. Things have to get smaller, shorter. Okay? For the observer, all of the space around the observer and the apparatus. It's all contracting in relation to the sun as it moves around it. But they can't tell because they're on the Earth. So for all they know, that's the only reference frame is this stationary relative Earth. Okay, but Einstein makes it very clear, and so did the physics. If anyone actually understood relativity, they would know that I'm correct. And this dude brought in some like relativity expert in physics. Tell him to come on in the field. Tell him to come on in the field and talk about it. He doesn't understand it. You're so arrogant. This guy teaches relativity. Tell him to come on in the field then, because he doesn't understand it, right? So it's specifically based on the math and the claims of physics says that, and even Einstein's point blank says this, length contraction is not subjective or apparent, meaning relative to what the observer sees. If it was strictly relative to observer, then it would be apparent, because observer observes things, i.e. apparent, appearance, observe. The physical effect that's claimed of contraction is not dependent upon an observer. Detecting it is dependent upon the observer. Everything in the universe is contracting according to Einstein because everything in the universe is moving according to Einstein, but that you can never specify that something's moving unless in relation to something else. If you say that there was no length contraction of the apparatus as they tried to detect the motion of the Earth around the sun, as the reference body of the sun was used to get the predicted fringe shift. If you say there was no contraction of the apparatus, you're saying the Earth is at rest and it's not going around the sun. It's a sleight of hand, obfuscation, look over here. We don't want to talk about the orbit. We want to talk about the people on the Earth and just act like we can compartmentalize the Earth and forget the fact this is all about, does it go around the sun? And this is for sure, it's incompetence. I don't want to be ugly. It's not understanding it. It's a lack of understanding. Maybe not incompetence, because what I think is the position is so incorrect, it renders their argument stupid. I don't think they're necessarily stupid. And I don't want to be ugly. So we're going to look at Einstein's PDF, and we're going to read him say this point blank. Did I miss a super chat? Someone said I just do this for the money. It's like so diluted to even say something like that. Yeah, I do it for the money. That's why I gave up way more money, gave up my business, spent all my savings just to go around and tell people about it. Just spent money I 100% don't have on audit NASA, just putting it all in there to try to do something big for the truth. I shouldn't even address those people. They should just get banned. You're banned. Banished. Banished to the outer lands. Okay, so let's look at his PDF real fast. Let me find it in my list of 5,000 PDFs. And I don't see it. How dare them. Like, I think all my wow, I have that many things with relativity in it. How double dog dare you? Sorry, I'm trying to find. Like, they all got moved to my laptop, and now the folders are gone. I'm trying to find it. I do not see it. That's super annoying. I guess I can just try to download it real fast. In a world. I'm being so trolled right now. Okay, I think I found it. Sorry. They're all like MIA. I don't know where they are. I say caliente. I'm trying to find you guys. I'm sorry about the delay. Let's see what you got. UFO, I already read that. This is way behind. If we're orbiting around the solar system at 500 kilometers per hour, how can anyone say that just the orbit around the sun causes Lorentz contraction in one direction when the other direction would have a greater speed? What do you mean? What do you mean the other direction would have a greater speed? What do you mean by that? When the other direction would have a greater speed? What other direction? It wouldn't surprise me if half your trolls are straight up agents. I think you may be underestimating just how lame certain people can be, but maybe. I guess this isn't even it. This is crazy, bro. Like, all those PDFs are gone. I'm gonna be so salty. Einstein, relativity. PDF. I think I found it. There we go. All right, so we're gonna share over here. Pretty good. Whoa. I may be just a little too tired. I'm like, oh. All right. Okay, here we go. All right. It's very important. It seems like some people just, I think they choose not to get it though. And what, I mean, there's not much you can do with that, right? Okay. Hopefully that looks all right for you guys. All right. So you're really onto something though with your theory of the model and educating more and more every day. You're a bona fide threat to them. Thank you, man. Yeah, I'm trying. All right. So here is Einstein himself. This is Again, it's called Relativity, the Special and General Theory. I'm going to start right here. This is page 61. I love your channel. Thank you. All right. The second class of facts to which we have alluded has reference to the question. I'm going to highlight as we go. Because I just, it's insane the amount of cognitive distance that works with this. Okay. In reference to the question, whether or not the motion of the Earth in space can be made perceptible in terrestrial experiments. We have already remarked in section 5 that all attempts of this nature, what nature? Of this nature, what nature? Experiments terrestrially attempting to detect the motion of the Earth. All attempts of this nature led to a negative result. Before the theory of relativity was put forward, it was difficult to become reconciled to this negative result for reasons now to be discussed. Yes, I actually do have to do this. So, before what? The theory of relativity. So, the theory of relativity reconciled the negative results. Okay. For reasons now to be discussed. The inherited prejudices about time and space did not allow any doubt to arise as to the prime importance of the Galilean transformation for changing over from one body of reference to another. Now, this is the key here. Time and space. So in the previous understanding, there was a difference between it and relativity regarding time and space. Was that a go to 0.25 speed? Yeah, no excuses. Now, assuming that the Maxwell-Lorentz equations hold for reference body K, we then find that they do not hold for a reference body K prime moving uniformly with respect to K. If we assume that the relations of the Galilean transformation exist between the coordinates of K and K prime, it thus appears that of all Galilean coordinate systems, one K corresponding to a particular state of motion, by the way, this is actually referencing the Earth effectively, corresponding to a particular state of motion is physically unique. This result was interpreted physically by regarding K as at rest. That's the Earth. K as at rest with respect to a hypothetical ether of space. On the other hand, all coordinate systems K prime moving relatively to K were to be regarded as in motion with respect to the ether. So this motion of K prime against the ether drift relative to K prime, were assigned the more complicated laws which were supposed to hold relative to K prime. Strictly speaking, such an ether drift ought also to be assumed relative to the Earth, and for a long time, the efforts of physicists were devoted to attempts to detect the existence of an ether drift at the Earth's surface. Okay, very important part here. That's why I had to highlight it. We're gonna keep it all together. Some people seem to want to talk about Einstein, but can't even read his layman term versions of relativity, which is what this is. And I get it's not for everyone. This is maybe a bit nerdy. In one of the most notable of these attempts. Okay, let's pause. In one of the most notable of these attempts. Okay, one of these attempts. Wait, what attempts? Oh, attempts of this nature. Wait, no, what nature? Terrestrial experiments. So it says we've already remarked that all attempts of this nature led to a negative result. All attempts to detect the motion of the Earth and terrestrial experiment led to a negative result. All of them. We come down here and he says, one of the most notable of these attempts, in case you were wondering, these attempts is plural. Okay. This right here, this is plural. Okay. Because just so you understand, people have been trying to say he's only talking about Michelson-Morley. Well, if you lack reading comprehension, I guess. And one of the most notable of these attempts, Michelson devised a method which appears as though it must be decisive. Imagine two mirrors so arranged on a rigid body that the reflecting surfaces face each other. A ray of light requires a perfectly definite time to pass from one mirror to the other and back again, if the whole system be at rest with respect to the ether. It is found by calculation, however, that a slightly different time, t prime, is required for this process if the body, together with the mirrors, be moving relatively to the ether. Okay, if the body's moving, it's going to be different than if it were at rest, obviously. And what it's saying is the time would be the same if the Earth is at rest with respect to the ether, and the time will be slightly different if the Earth is moving relative to the ether. And yet another point, it is shown by calculation that for a given velocity v with reference to the ether, this time is different when the body is moving perpendicularly to the planes of the mirrors, from that resulting when the motion is parallel to these planes. Although the estimated, this is talking about the Michelson-Morley experiment. They shot light beams perpendicular to each other, one going against the motion of the Earth. Although the estimated difference between these two times is exceedingly small, meaning the difference in the time with the light beam moving with the Earth and the one moving perpendicular to that against the assumed motion of the Earth. Although the estimated difference between these two times is exceedingly small, Michelson and Morley performed an experiment involving interference in which this difference should have been clearly detectable. But the experiment gave a negative result, a fact very perplexing to physicists. Lorentz and Fitzgerald rescued the theory from this difficulty. This is very important. I do feel like I have to do it this way, but Lorentz and Fitzgerald rescued the theory, what theory? That the Earth is moving in relation to the ether, from this difficulty by assuming that the motion of the body relative to the ether, the body is the Earth, relative to the ether, produces a contraction of the body in the direction of motion. So this is also going to apply to the apparatus itself, the body of the apparatus. So again, Lorentz and Fitzgerald rescued the theory from this difficulty by assuming that the motion of the body relative to the ether produces a contraction of the body in the direction of motion, the amount of contraction being just sufficient to compensate for the difference in time mentioned above. Honestly, this should all be freaking highlighted. So it's very clear here, right? Let's go back up to the highlights. Okay. So the estimated difference between these two times is exceedingly small. But they performed an experiment involving interference in which this difference should have been clearly detected But the experiment gave a negative result, which is very perplexing until Lorentz and Fitzgerald came and rescued the theory from this difficulty, keyword difficulty, by assuming that the motion of the body relative to the ether produces a contraction of the body in the direction of motion, the amount of contraction being just sufficient to compensate for the difference in time mentioned above. The body contracted just the right amount to compensate for the missing time difference. Comparison, this is very key right here. Comparison with this discussion in section 12, he's talking about in this paper, shows that from the standpoint also. What does the word also mean? Okay, it means relativity is also claiming, right? So the standpoint also of the theory of relativity, this solution of the difficulty was the right one. Wait up. Difficulty. Where do we see that word? Here it is. They saved the theory from this difficulty. What was the difficulty? Oh, the negative result that was perplexing to physicists. Okay. Well, what was the negative result? It didn't show the small time difference that should have been there if the Earth was moving. Well, then he says, according to relativity, the solution, which was, what was the solution? That the body contracted in the direction of motion just the exact amount needed to compensate or to make up for the amount of time difference that should have been there but wasn't detected. We see that from the standpoint also of relativity, that solution to the difficulty was the right one. That means Einstein is claiming that the solution to the Michelson-Morley difficulty according to relativity is the same solution that Fitzgerald and Lorentz proposed, which is that the body contracted in the direction of motion just the right amount to compensate for the missing time difference. Any person that you hear speaking on the internet about this and lying, claiming he didn't say that, after they've had this broken down to them, you cannot trust them. They are disingenuous, okay? But on the basis of the theory of relativity, the method of interpretation is incomparably more satisfactory. What he's saying is relativity is invoking the same physical solution to the difficulty, but they have a different interpretation. So it has to be the same claim, just a different interpretation of the claim. Same physical claim, which is that there was a physical contraction. According to this theory, there is no such thing as a specially favored, unique coordinate system to occasion the introduction of the ether idea, and hence there can be no ether drift, nor any experiment which to demonstrate it. Sorry, I was trying to see if I could hear Leah just a second. All right, we're good. All right. Coming down here. Here, the contraction of moving bodies follows from the two fundamental principles of the theory without the introduction of particular hypotheses. And as the prime factor involved, and by the way, what he means by this is he's not actually proposing a physical mechanism. He couldn't even come up with a physical mechanism to explain this contraction. That's what that means. This is why you have people running around now claiming, well, it's just based on how it looks from what reference frame you're in. No, it's not. Einstein point blank came out and said, people saying that are ignorant and don't understand my theory. It's a real physical effect, and it can be measured physically in theory because it's real and physical. It is not subjective, and it's not apparent. Well, if it just appears to look like it's contracting because of the observer, that would be the exact definition of apparent. And he made it very apparent that it is not just apparent, it's actually physical. Okay. I know that this is a bit nerdy, but this is so important to understand. Because there are heliocentrist apologists running around blatantly lying about this. And as the prime factor involved in this contraction, we find not the motion in itself, to which we cannot attach any meaning. What does he mean by that? Oh, well, all motion is relative. So we cannot attach any meaning, any actual meaning to motion, because it's all relative. But the motion with respect to the body of reference chosen in the particular case in point. What is the particular case in point of Michelson-Morley that they chose to use as a reference? It's the sun, because they used the 30 kilometer per second assumed orbit of the Earth through space around the sun to get their predicted fringe shift that they did not detect. Thus, for a coordinate system moving with the Earth, the mirror system of Michelson and Morley is not shortened. Okay, this is where they're taking it and misrepresenting it. Okay, thus for a coordinate system, meaning your coordinate system moving with the Earth, your coordinate system moving with the Earth, then your mirror system, the mirror system of Michelson-Morley is not shortened, meaning we use coordinate systems to create Cartesian points, Cartesian coordinate systems to measure things. Coordinate systems, that's how we measure and place dimensions. So for your coordinate system, which is an arbitrary concept, an abstract description of dimensions, a coordinate system. For your coordinate system, if you're moving with the Earth, the mirror system of Michelson-Morley is not shortened because it's your coordinate system that you're using to try and describe the dimensions, i.e. the length. Since your coordinate system is also moving with the Earth, it's also contracting in the direction of motion, just like it says right here. I wish you guys could see my mouse. Right here, in the direction of motion. Like it says right here at the bottom of the page now. Let's say top of the page. Direction of motion. Okay? And of course, again, he says, according to relativity, this is the right answer. It's just a different interpretation. Come down here. This is the problem. People don't understand Einstein. And therefore, they shouldn't be going around making fun of people for not believing in how insane it is. So then he points out that thus there is no such thing as motion. All right, nothing's at rest. There's no such thing as truly at rest. But there's no such thing as motion in and of itself. We can attribute no real importance to motion because it's all relative. So it's motion with respect to the body of reference, to what you're using to reference the motion. I'm going around the pole. Instead of just I'm moving a circle. Well, I'm moving a circle around what? The pole. You need your body of reference. Relativity says all motion's relative. If you're moving with the Earth, which no one's doing, by the way, relativity is saying that if you're moving with the Earth as it orbits, for your coordinate system that you use to describe dimensions like length, it isn't shortened. The mirror system of Michelson-Morley is not shortened for your coordinate system because your coordinate system, i.e. the space, is contracting in the direction of motion. Your coordinate system is contracting in the direction of motion. Thus, when Michelson and Morley is shortened, it's shortened the same amount as your coordinate system. So for your coordinate system, i.e. your attempt to describe or denote a length, it doesn't get shorter because it's all contracting in relation to the body of reference chosen in the particular case in point. And in this particular case in point, it's the sun. But it is shortened for a coordinate system which is at rest relatively to the sun. Meaning, if you used a coordinate system to describe the length of Michelson-Morley, and you were in a coordinate system that was in rest relative to the sun, you would see the Michelson-Morley apparatus contract. Your coordinate system wouldn't be contracting because it's not in motion. So then when you went to go measure Michelson-Morley, you would see it got shorter. But if you used a coordinate system that was in motion, it's contracting also relative to that motion. So it's going to contract the same amount as the apparatus. To say that it doesn't shorten for the person on the earth is an inept reading of the text and an inept understanding of relativity itself. It's simply an incompetent understanding of the entire historical timeline of Michelson-Morley, what was observed, the physics entailed within it, what Lorentz and Fitzgerald did to save it from the difficulty, what Einstein said about taking it and integrating it in, and the actual explanation that it was proposing. If this is just a fact, think about how weird it is to have to lie about it. So, in conclusion, what people try to do, again, because this is basically a Silman, and I'm being really overly specific, and there's no way that it can be misunderstood, right? Okay, I want to make sure everyone gets it. So, what they'll try to say is, oh, you see, it says that for the person moving with the Earth, the mirror system of Michelson and Morley is not shortened. Does it say for the person? Well, no. What it says is that a coordinate system, which is how you describe dimensions, okay, length, width, height, okay, that coordinate system that's moving with the Earth, the mirror system will not be shortened. The apparatus of Michelson and Morley will not be shortened for that coordinate system. It's very simple, okay? So now if we come back over here to show you this, maybe now this will make, he is 100% correct in his understanding because he can actually read and understand Einstein, it appears, right? So
result, which is that lengths contract in the direction of motion, but not perpendicular to the direction of motion. The contract Lorentz. In the late 1800s, Henrik Lorentz proposed a solution to the Michelson-Morley result, which is that lengths contract in the direction of motion, but not perpendicular to the direction of motion. The concept is that moving objects actually get physically shorter along the axis of motion, including the moving observers themselves, but they don't notice the change. Moving observers will not detect the shrinking of proper lengths because their measuring devices also contract along the axis of motion. So the contracted length of a moving train car will appear to be the same length when measured with a contracted meter stick. The concept is similar to time dilation, where the clocks use...
Did everyone catch that? Okay. As this train is moving, this is what relativity says, right? It's lunacy. This is why they have to lie about it, because it's so obvious that it's lunacy. As this train moves, it's going to get shorter in the direction that it's moving, according to relativity. But if you were on that train and you tried to pull a ruler out and measure how much shorter the train got, you wouldn't be able to do that, because as you pulled the ruler out and move with the train, you would also contract the same amount. So your ruler would measure the same amount of the window. So look at the window. If we look at the window here, you see how much of it is being covered up by the ruler and how much is not. That ratio is going to stay the same because the window and the ruler contracted. This is what relativity says. And we just read it in Einstein's own words, if it's truly understood what he's saying. Or you can claim he just doesn't know what he's talking about, right? When he says, point blank, the standpoint also of the theory of relativity, this solution of the difficulty was the right one, And the solution to the difficulty, right here, Lorentz and Fitzgerald rescue the theory from this difficulty by assuming that the motion of the body relative to the ether produces a contraction of the body in the direction of motion, the amount of contraction being just the right amount to compensate for the time difference that was missing that should have been there. And although it's a very small amount, it should have been decisive because they came up with a brilliant way to measure it using interferometry. So it should have been clearly detectable, but it wasn't, and it perplexed the physicists. Lorentz and Fitzgerald saved the theory from the problem. Einstein took that save and said, and he explains, you can just read section 12 and it tells you, which it does, very point blank, that in his own theory, that idea that saved the theory from the difficulty was the right one, okay? So I know I'm being really redundant. There's no way someone has an excuse other than to just lie at this point, which they will do, I can guarantee you.
Late 1800s, Henrik Lorentz proposed a solution to the Michelson-Morley result, which is that lengths contract in the direction of motion, but not perpendicular to the direction of motion. The concept is that moving objects actually get physically shorter along the axis of motion, including the moving observers themselves, but they don't notice the change. Moving observers will not detect the shrinking of proper lengths because their measuring devices also contract along the axis of motion. So the contracted length of a moving train car will appear to be the same length when measured with a contracted meter stick. The concept is similar to time dilation, where the clocks used by moving observers tick more slowly, but the moving observers are unaware of the slowing. The moving observers assume that their seconds prime are of the same duration as stationary seconds, even though stationary observers will notice that a second prime lasts gamma times longer than a second.
Yeah, gamma's right. All right. So, and we'll get into time dilation in maybe the next one, where I'll bury the muon decay, which supposedly proves length contraction and time dilation. And to give you a brief breakdown of what they claim that the muon is like the electron's awkward, heavy cousin, right? You know, the electron that they claim was a charge-carrying particle of matter that has no size or shape, at least no known size or shape, but they know it's matter, but they don't know it has size or shape, but they know it's matter. It's material, but no size or shape. And it's carrying a charge like Santa carries a bag. And then they slowly changed it sleight of hand and let all the lay people run around keep saying that, right? And it's 100 million times smaller than the atom that can't be directly observed unless you create a contrasted image with reflectance, right? You create an image of an atom that's 99.99999% empty space. The electron is 100 million times smaller than that. And then there's something they call the muon, which is the cousin of the electron, just a little heavier. And they claim this comes from cosmic rays from space coming down to the Earth, hitting a certain layer in the Earth's atmosphere, and then creating different subatomic particles, one of which is a muon. And when they claim they find the muon on the surface of the Earth, they see that it only lasts a very small portion of time, right? And then they see way too many of the muons on the surface of the Earth, which means that that muon had to get way further than it could have based on its lifespan. Therefore, time must have physically changed and slowed down as distance shortened. Okay. And they claim that's evidence that they detect too many muons at the surface, and that is the best evidence they have. We'll cover that next show. We'll cover time dilation. And this is cutting edge science. I mean, this is how bad the heliocentric model is, dude. This is just reprehensible. It's so incompetent. But the reason that I wanted to touch on time dilation real quick is just so everyone understands the basic concept. Okay, you got speed. Speed, right? Speed is the amount of distance traveled over time. Distance over time equals speed. Okay, so if you're going to claim that light has an absolute speed, constant, it's absolute for all observers, it's constant, it's absolute. Okay, so it can't change. C, constant speed. But you're going to claim that the distance got shorter, right? You're going to have to also change the time. Because if you change the distance but keep the speed the same, that means you're going to have to change the time. Simple analogy. If someone runs across a football field that's 100 yards and it takes them 5 seconds, and then another guy, probably having more melanin, runs across 2 football fields in 5 seconds. Now they've ran different distances, 100 yards and 200 yards, but they had the same time, which means the one guy that ran 200 yards in the 5 seconds had to be going faster, right? Speed equals distance over time. They said that the distance or the length contracted, and that the length of the apparatus contracting made the distance that light path had to travel shorter, which means if you want to keep the same speed but change that distance to save the heliocentric model, you then have to claim that time also changed. That is how they came up with time dilation. No experiments, nothing like that. This is actually antithetical to science. It's a religion. It's a philosophical bias built upon the doctrine of men. Void of empirical evidence, and in fact, it's so egregious it's in the face of the evidence, antithetical to empirical evidence. So that's how they came up with time dilation. I broke it down really, really simple. Is melanin real? Is extraction of it possible? And yeah, is melanin real? I don't see how it wouldn't be. I love how he has to talk extremely slow. I just want to make sure there's no excuses, So I'm not trying to sound condescending or anything. I'm just trying to make sure. It's like, I know it's so convoluted that like I just want to really break it down so everyone understands it. Why do we have so many trolls in here now? I've watched 5 or 6 of your modern day debates. I've noticed you've never actually described your paradigm of the world, just nitpick random things on the globe model. Is this purposeful? You're lying, though. So why are you lying? So the Earth is a stationary, and honestly, normally what happens is the ballers just make up nonsense they claim debunks the flat Earth or debunks the globe, and I have to rebut it the whole time, and I get incessantly interrupted. For you to watch the debates and leave thinking anything other than the fact that the other people I'm debating were just unbearably unprofessional and rude and fallacious, you're suffering from cognitive dissonance, I think. But anyway, this is what my position
Matt
is.
Donated $20 through Super Chat. Wouldn't theories on length contraction be contradicted by the results of Michelson-Morley?
I didn't follow what I was reading. Wouldn't theories on length contraction be contradicted by the results of Michelson-Morley? That's a good point. We could cover that right now, but it tiptoes over into time dilation, and I want to cover it next week because we're already like pushing a couple hours. But yes, you cannot combine Michelson-Gale-Pearson and Michelson-Morley adequately according to Einstein's theory, and we're going to bury that next week. Thank you for the $20 super chat, MKE Matt. Much love, brother. All right. This is my position of the Earth. Okay, so pay attention. I've said this so many times. I don't want to take full credit, but I think I coined like phrasing it like this, right? But the Earth is a stationary topographical plane. The Earth is a geocentric, stationary So actually, normally what I said is a stationary geocentric topographical plane. Anyway, the Earth is a stationary... You're typing, so you're not listening. So, I need you to listen, man. The Earth is a stationary topographical plane. Okay? It's in the center of a magnetic field. If you look into magnetic fields, they have something called the block wall, a block domain wall. It's an inertial plane, meaning an unchanging plane. It's in the middle of magnetic field. The Earth resides in the middle of the magnetic field, in the inertial plane of the magnetic field. We observe the top half of the toroid. It has ellipses in it. This explains all the motion of everything in the sky. It explains the perpetual angular momentum of the entire cosmos around the Earth, which would then result in a net centripetal force down onto the Earth, explaining any form of Coriolis that were to exist. Also explaining how you could, in fact, put satellites up, not to mention that you could use magnetism also. You have a 45-second delay? Okay. You should listen. The sun and the moon move over top of the Earth. We have a limited field of view, 360 degrees all around us, and there is a curved limit to our view. That's what causes us to see the sun set or rise. We can see things beyond this limit, but we don't pick it up till it's within the limit. This explains the counter rotation in the south as well. This explains literally all phenomena in the sky. Whatever is moving in the sky is intrinsically electromagnetic, seemingly in a fluid-like medium that's much more dense than any absurd claim of a vacuum. There's something containing the Earth because there's gas pressure here. Now, it not being a vacuum, it really opens up the possibilities, but it seems to be layered, plasma-like, superfluid qualities if you actually look at the energy that comes from the sky and you actually look at the way that the densities would lay out based on the magnetic field itself. Do you have a picture? Yes. So... And what's so funny is when I do the debates and I try to talk about this, they get super triggered and they just freak out. So, you know, that's why like the debates kind of suck, to be honest. I'm not actually seeing what I wanted to show you, but how dare you? Oh, I can show you this. Oh, there it is. All right, I went and got this picture for you, man. Don't say I did nothing for you. Okay. There you go. I don't know if you guys can see my mouse, but if you look in the bottom left here, you're going to see a white line. That would actually be horizontal instead of vertical like it is in the picture. We would reside on the top portion of that white line. We observe the top half of the field. The top pictures would be you looking down onto the Earth, and these ellipses would be the actual motion of the stuff in the sky moving perpetually within this. You would have a vortex in the middle that creates the perpetual angular momentum around the Earth. In fact, I think that's the only viable model that exists. And I can back that up with anyone that would like to try to debate otherwise. What about the 17,800 mile per hour? What mechanism do they invoke with satellites to achieve this? I'll try to measure the speed of the camera to the time to estimate distance. What mechanisms do they invoke? Whenever you look at the math that they use for satellites, they assume the Earth is stationary and they account for real inertial forces in the sky, which is pretty interesting if you think about it. So you could just transpose a globe onto a flat Earth by slightly stretching the north, contracting the south. Of course, if you've seen the ISS, it's just a flower of light that fits right within that toroid. Literally, this top left picture is exactly what the ISS looks like. Its path over a plane. And they have to account for centrifugal force, Coriolis force, and Euler forces up in the sky. And they would be fictitious, according to them. But why are they accounting for the forces up in the sky? What's creating the Coriolis force in the sky, according to the globe model? So they use an Earth-centered, Earth-fixed, stationary Earth model. And then they account for real angular momentum in the sky, causing real forces, resulting in a net centripetal force. And now we know it's a vortex. Pretty interesting. If you catch that vortex, you could actually perpetually move around the sky. And what gets really interesting is if you look at the 8 kilometer per second speeds they detected with Dayton Miller's replication of Michelson-Morley, that comes out to right around 17,800 miles per hour. What a coincidence. Love your work, Austin. Thanks for all you do. Flat Earth Archive. Nice. Thank you, Flat Earth Archive. Mike, for the $5 super chat. Much love. I guess I don't have the comments on here either. Where's the comments? Boom. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Also, don't want to miss Rokfin. Sometimes I miss my peeps over at Rokfin. I feel bad that I even responded to that guy at the beginning. All right. Okay. Keep it up, brother. Your streams can change the world. Thank you, David Torrey, for the $20 tip on Rokfin. Much love. Shout out to the 28 Legends over on Rokfin watching. If you ever end up in Montana, I'll gladly take you fishing, Yellowstone, whatever. I was banned from Yellowstone for a year, but I think it's over now. I don't know, actually. Can you show me Flatman X in the Rokfin chat? What's up, brother? Another Owen Benjamin clone giving lectures. Good one. Did it look like a saucer? Oh, you weren't asking me. Shout out to all the legends in the Rokfin chat. That does help me out just to watch them there. It feels. All right. All right. Thank you guys for kicking it. I know a lot of people have heard me cover this before. I know it was like I was being really redundant. I'm sorry that I'm kind of tired as well, but it was a really long day. But I did show up for you guys. So I'm gonna get out of here. I have a lot of stuff I still need to do with the audit NASA, and then Aaliyah's gonna wake up soon. I gotta feed her again and get her to lay back down. She normally wakes up around 12:30 or so. So cool. That's it. All right. I love you guys. If you want to support the stream, which would be greatly beneficial and appreciated, links to support should be in the description. You can also find the Telegram groups there. We have a personal group chat. Nothing's off limit to talk about. Obviously, like hateful toxicity and drama is not allowed, but all topics completely uncensored. That's the Miswit chats. The link's in the description. You can also go to the Witsit streams, t.me/Witsit streams. Links in the chat. And that's where I drop all my stream information, the different presentations and links and PDFs. And then, yeah, you got like $WitsitGetsIt on Cash App. I'll start actually dropping the links to support audit NASA in the chat as well. Because, yeah, if we can all rally around audit NASA, I think we can like actually glitch the matrix, and it's going to be very cool. So I'm going to work on that some tonight, all day tomorrow, as much as I can. Cool. Thank you guys for kicking it. Go to the chat. That way we can I can get feedback. When should I do the gravy streams? What should I do? Do you guys like the current schedule, the current themes, blah, blah, blah. That's the best place to add me at me. You can also message me on Telegram at Witsit. All right. Cool. Lifting you up, homie. Thank you, man. Much love. Run Boston Bear. I love you guys. Thanks for kicking it. I'm super tired. Seek and speak truth unequivocally. The weak find contentment in the consensus of ignorance. So who cares what other people think? This channel is really just kind of about like thinking for yourself, breaking through the barriers of propaganda and fear of mob mentality nonsense. The Plain Life, thank you again for another super chat. It only reads off $20 or above, but he said thank you, and thank you, brother. There it is. Thank you so much, Plain Life. Thank you for the generous donation earlier. It's greatly appreciated. We'll have Schooling Globers Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. And then we have Witsit Kicks It with Caleb and Derek. We're reviewing the 3v3 stream debate that we did on Jaren's channel a few weeks back. And I'm still trying to figure out who the guest for Friday is. Something fell through. We'll figure it out. Everything works out. Cool. Thanks for kicking it. Yeah, and then whenever you rally you for his name's sake or for the truth's sake, just rejoice. They did all the prophets before you, and what's popular is not true, and what true is rarely popular. I'll catch up with you guys Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, Schooling Globers, episode 12. Peace.
For Israel, wonder is it real? Rappers acting say they high, say they sipping pills, glorify suicide so they get the deals. Big Pharma set it up, had to flip the pills, control the music industry until the scripts get filled. Geopolitically, yeah, we in the field. That's for Israel, wonder is it real? Took the way you saw the world, then distorted it. Now you think you wanna rock that twirl somewhere orbiting. Theories disproportionate, the truth distorted quick with a forceful grip. They force a simple that we absorbing quick. Took the people's signature to mean extorted it. They forging it if news anchors informant to informing them. There's a surplus, but they tell us there are shortages. Credit economy mortgages, dollar that's supported with empty fortresses. But what's important is this: we courting ships, important gifts. Of course it is, what extortion is in accordance with an assortment list of foreign tricks. We ignoring which informant this, informant this. It looked like we were snoring tricked. Pedophilia and the government endorsing it. Yeah, eugenics is exactly what abortion is. You just vilify those insubordinate. Way to matrix engineer, that's unfortunate. Geopolitically we in a field. That's for Israel, wonder is it real? Rappers actors say they high, say they sip with pills, glorify suicide so they get the deals. Big Pharma set it up just to flip the pills, control the music industry until the scripts get filled. Geopolitically, yeah, we in a field. That's for Israel, wonder is it real?